tears while you bursting up with laughter. Freedom for Palestine, freedom for Gaza, freedom for every child, mother and father. You are being bombed by the bombs of Obama. I'm bursting out tears while you bursting up with laughter. Free Palestine and lay down your weapons. This is for the innocent souls that went to heaven.
And residents like you. We are here to tell you about our oppression and abuse. Both Palestinians and Jews, we share the same views, that to a genocide there is no excuse. Put yourself in our shoes, because it's up to you to choose. Do you want the truth or the lie that you are used to? Since 1948, when Israel genocided its way to a state, ethnic apartheid and hate, claiming to love the land that they desecrate. They expelled and massacred the Palestinians, and still to date, terror over all they create. They control our medicine, energy, water, and food intake. At their own will, they shut it all off and dictate. How would you feel in that state? They tell you that Palestinians are your animals to wait, so that you look away and take the bait, allowing this genocide to continue until it's too late. When will we stop this crime against humanity? When will we ever relate? For 76 years, Palestinians have been executed, persecuted, for the crimes of an anti-Semitic Europe prosecuted. Our olive trees uprooted, our water polluted, our lands looted, our rich history intentionally diluted, colonized, expelled, and substituted, our massacres for decades till today disputed, and our voices muted, as our colonizers concluded that from our own land we ought to be excluded. For 7 months and 76 years, they've ignored our chant and screams about the Israeli genocidal regime as the Dutch government continues to support their bloodthirsty machine. 4 Palestinian generations under brutal military occupation, and our government and media still uphold the Zionist lies and narration. Manipulation in this war of information, calling ethnic cleansing voluntary migration. Genocide by bombs, snipers, lack of medication, dehydration, starvation, according to the Zionist declaration. Empty promises of ceasefire and phrases of mediation, while Palestinians face their ongoing annihilation. They call us names to scare us and break our determination, when for the crime of genocide there is absolutely no justification. The Dutch government is supporting a genocide. To a genocidal regime, they have become a blindly loyal ally. They're selling them F-35 flying machines and glorify the killing of tens of thousands of innocents in Palestine, claiming that the numbers are unspecified. But they're leaving their own claims unverified when they cut off the lifeline to UNRWA for the refugees left behind. The children left paralyzed and horrified, bodies left unidentified. They try to fool us and speak of equality and human rights, simultaneously continuing to dehumanize the Palestinians, to stand by their capitalistic allies' side. A genocide they're trying to hide. Then they vilified those who resisted. They bombed more innocents for the livelihood of their economy and maritime, rather than stopping this genocide. A genocide, according to the ICJ, televised and live day by day. As our people agonize, our government's embassy briefings remain classified, but we know what they specified. All that they had to modify to justify the occupation army that they fortified, so that they continue to impunely terrorize. And with their speeches, they lie and imply that everything is fine as long as we abide, that everything to Israel they supplied with international law complied, as if we don't see Palestinians' children piled up and their insides blown outside. We shouldn't mind that they blatantly support apartheid, and then we should just confine as long as they continue to think they can decide when and to whom international law should be applied. In the Netherlands, we are accused of anti-Semitism for rejecting and resisting Western colonialism, after condemning Nazism but hailing the ideology that is Zionism, as they feed their Western imperialism, telling you that Israel is a democracy when it's built on Zionism in the name of fighting terrorism. But who here is defining terrorism? Is it not the Zionist entity eradicating our identity? Is it not the intensity in which they bomb the strip of 2.3 million civilians in density? Is it not the extremity that creates apartheid and disparity? Which other country is allowed to kill with impunity to keep their ethnic and religious purity? Dear Western citizens, your governments are the ones that create my oppression that you claim to hate. You speak for me as a woman, you want to liberate us, but from whom? Your government is the one that wants to dominate. They facilitate our people's ethnic cleansing and cheer Israel to eliminate 2.3 million Palestinians in Gaza alone. And they tell you we want to voluntarily migrate. Then they blame us that we cannot integrate into the people they heavily indoctrinate, who cheer as Israel continues to annihilate. Then they say we come from war zones and we need to rehabilitate. The same wars that they escalate. In reality, they just want to separate us from our rich culture that they seek to obliterate, and demand that we look away and accept our fate as they collaborate to innovate their war machines and invade by pretending to mitigate their false propaganda. They're unable to prove nor corroborate. Their missiles do not discriminate. The bodies of our martyrs we cannot even refrigerate as they try to dissipate the Palestinian population from their own land and limit their birth rate. Let me reiterate, and please allow this to resonate. This is a genocide, and all our leaders know more than you anticipate. Please refuse to participate in this injustice that they originate. We've been told that someone needs to expose this government's foreign policy and the habit that they impose. They convince you that the theocracy, defined by a government under the control of a state religion, is in the Middle East the only democracy. But it cannot be by definition when one people are prepared over the lives of the indigenous. What's this hypocrisy? They silence us on social media, our jobs, and even cinematography. They murder our children, doctors, journalists, and forbid international lenses and photography. Veto rights given, supporting the colonizers who vowed publicly to change Palestine's demography. Promises of a temporary ceasefire is genocide with an apostrophe. Speaking up against the genocide is once again silenced because of its sensitivity, when after 80 years we have learned nothing about protecting an ethnicity. They are counting on our passivity, threatening those who speak out with their vulnerability to continue their duplicity without giving you context nor validity. They want to take our flag and its affinity to increase their profitability of the gas, oil, and weapons industry, banking on the Middle East's instability and questioning our voices' credibility. While they are causing mass fatality, they try to hide the Israeli war crimes and severity. We all heard you say it, Victor, as they could in cold blood and brutality. But we refuse to live under their totality, with the support of the Israeli regime and its criminality, while pretending to liberate my sexuality. When you ask all of us to closet our ethnicity, claiming LGBTQ rights and feminism, but then condemning our anti-genocide activism, while they practice their classism, apologists for any rationalism. These are the same politicians that don't care about any of us humans anywhere. The same ones that convince you your children deserve to live, but killing ours is fair. The same ones that declare a war while we, its citizens, sit unaware, ignoring our protests at every square, saying we are aggressive and anti-Semitic, to leave you in constant fear and despair, telling you that outside of Europe humanity is rare. Be thankful, they tell you, for you are the liberalized. Focus on your carbon emissions while they drop 2,000-pound bombs on a people they deem less civilized. Citizens, I need your concentration. Camps of refugees being bombed is an attempt of extermination. Our government is calling a genocide a military operation, while Palestine is left in total devastation and deprivation. And they protect the Israeli war criminals from implications. If our government can stop funding UNRWA because of the Israeli allegations, why can't they stop funding Israel because of the International Court of Justice genocide investigation? We have exposed their motivation, and their form of intimidation no longer works. We see clearly who's a terrorist organization. 7 months for a ceasefire we fled. Now we see Palestinians struggling to keep their families fed, with snipers pointing guns at their heads, trying to fetch flour for bread. We fear for those who fled, and mourn those to death who bled, and instead they spread lies about us and our families to justify 40,000 civilians dead. We are all human, we are all Palestinian. Liberation is our aim. They all have dreams, they all have names. We are not pawns in your geopolitical games. We shed blood and tears of pain, being slaughtered while you say never again. Called terrorists and condemned to forever explain, to constantly prove our humanity, and from our anger at all times to refrain, when the Netherlands in a ceasefire vote say, I abstain. We are all human, we are all Palestinian. We hear of human rights, but we see nothing humane. For your future children and grandchildren stand on the right side of history. Every genocide everywhere is our responsibility. Free Palestine and Dutch complicity.
Palestine, freedom for Gaza, freedom for every child, mother and father. I'm being bombed by the bombs of Obama. I'm bursting out tears while you're bursting out with laughter. Freedom for Palestine, freedom for Gaza, freedom for every child, mother and father. I'm being bombed by the bombs of Obama. I'm bursting out tears while you're bursting out with laughter.
The court meets today to deliver its open court its decision on the request for the modification of the order of March 28, 2024, regarding provisional submitted by South Africa on May 10, 2024, in the case concerning application of the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide in the Gaza Strip, South Africa versus Israel. For reasons made known to me, Judges Abraham, Shwe, and Iwasawa, who duly participated in the deliberation and the final vote, are not in a position to take. Judge ad hoc Barak, who also duly participated in the deliberations and the I recall that on alleged violations in the Gaza Strip of on the prevention and punishment of that on December 29, 2023, South Africa filed in the registry of the court an application instituting proceedings against Israel concerning alleged violations in the Gaza Strip of obligations under the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, to which I shall refer as the Genocide Convention. The application of South Africa contained a request for the indication of provisional measures. After hearing the parties, the court indicated certain provisional measures by an order issued on January 26, 2024. By a letter dated February 12, 2024, South Africa, referring to, I quote, the developing circumstances in Rafah, end of quote, called upon the court urgently to exercise its power under Article 75, paragraph 1 of the Rules of Court. The registrar informed the parties of court's decision in response to that communication by letter on 16 February 2024. On March 6, 2024, South Africa requested the court, I quote, to indicate further provisional measures and or to modify its provisional measures indicated on January 26, 2024. By an order of March 28, 2024, the court reaffirmed the provisional measures indicated in its order of January 26, 2024, and indicated certain additional provisional measures. On May 10, 2024, South Africa submitted to the court what it described as an urgent request for the modification and indication of provisional measures, pursuant to Article 41 of the statute and Articles 75 and 76 of the Rules of Court. In accordance with usual practice, I shall not read the introductory paragraphs of the order, which set out the procedural history of the case. I shall also omit or summarize some other paragraphs. I shall therefore begin by reading the order at paragraph 20. The court begins by noting that, in its view, South Africa's present request is a request for the modification of the order of March 28, 2024. For this reason, the court must determine whether the conditions set forth in Article 76, paragraph 1 of the Rules of Court have been fulfilled. That paragraph reads as follows, I quote, at the request of a party or proprio motu, the court may, at any time before the final judgment in the case, revoke or modify any decision concerning provisional measures if, in its opinion, some change in the situation justifies such revocation or modification. End of quote. The court must first ascertain whether, taking into account the information that the parties have provided with respect to the current situation, there is reason to conclude that the situation that warranted the decision set out in its order of March 28, 2024, has changed since that time. If the court finds that there was a change in the situation since the delivery of its earlier order, it will then have to consider whether such a change justifies a modification of its earlier decision concerning provisional measures. Any such modification would be appropriate only if the general conditions laid down in Article 41 of the Statute of the Court were also met in this instance. The Court thus begins by determining whether there has been a change in the situation that warranted the decision set out in its order of March 28, 2024. The Court recalls that in its order of January 26, 2024, it noted that the military operation conducted by Israel following the attack of October 7, 2023, had resulted in, I quote, a large number of deaths and injuries, as well as the massive destruction of homes, the forcible displacement of the vast majority of the population, and extensive damage to civilian infrastructure. End of quote. In its decision communicated to the parties by letters of 16 February 2024, the Court noted, quoting the United Nations Secretary General, that the developments in the Gaza Strip and Rafah in particular, I quote, would exponentially increase what was already a humanitarian nightmare with untold regional consequences. End of quote. The Court further records that in its order of March 28, 2024, it observed with regret that the catastrophic living conditions of the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip had deteriorated further since January 2024, especially in view of the prolonged and widespread deprivation of food and other basic necessities to which the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip had been subjected. In the present order, the Court notes that the catastrophic humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip, which, as stated in its order of January 26, 2024, was at serious risk of deteriorating, has deteriorated, and has done so even further since the Court adopted its order of March 28, 2024. In this regard, the Court observes that the concern that it expressed in its decision communicated to the parties on February 16, 2024, with respect to the developments in Rafah have materialized, and that the humanitarian situation is now to be characterized as disastrous. After weeks of intensification of military bombardments of Rafah, where more than 1 million Palestinians had fled as a result of Israeli evacuation orders, covering more than 3/4 of Gaza's entire territory, on May 6, 2024, nearly 100,000 Palestinians were ordered by Israel to evacuate the eastern portion of Rafah and relocate to Al-Mawasi and Khan Yunis areas ahead of a planned military offensive. The military ground offensive in Rafah, which Israel started on May 7, 2024, is still ongoing and has led to new evacuation orders. As a result, according to United Nations reports, nearly 800,000 people have been displaced from Rafah as at May 18, 2024. The Court considered that the aforementioned developments which are exceptionally grave, in particular the military offensive in Rafah and the resulting repeated large-scale displacement of already extremely vulnerable Palestinian population in the Gaza Strip, constitute a change in the situation within the meaning of Article 76 of the Rules of Court. The Court is also of the view that provisional measures indicated in its order of March 28, 2024, as well as those reaffirmed therein, do not fully address the consequences arising from the change in the situation previously explained, thus justifying the modification of these measures. However, in order to modify its earlier decision concerning provisional measures, the Court must still satisfy itself that the general conditions laid down in Article 41 of the Statute of the Court are met in the current situation. The Court next turns to the conditions for the indication of provisional measures. It recalls that in its orders of January 26, 2024 and March 28, 2024, it concluded that, prima facie, it had jurisdiction pursuant to Article 9 of the Genocide Convention to entertain the case. The Court sees no reason to revisit that conclusion for the purposes of deciding on the present request. In the order of January 26, 2024, the Court also found that at least some of the rights claimed by South Africa under the Genocide Convention and for which it was seeking protection were plausible, namely the right of the Palestinians in Gaza to be protected from acts of genocide and related prohibited acts mentioned in Article 3, and the right of South Africa to seek Israel's compliance with the latter's obligation under the Convention. The Court saw no reason to revisit this conclusion in its order of March 28, 2024. The Court likewise sees no reason to do so for the purposes of deciding on the present request. It further considers that, by their very nature, at least some of the provisional measures sought pursuant to the present request are aimed at preserving the rights claimed by the applicant that the Court has found to be plausible. The Court must next consider whether the current situation entails a risk of irreparable prejudice to the plausible rights claimed by South Africa and whether there is urgency. The Court recalls in this regard that it has previously concluded that in view of the fundamental values sought to be protected by the Genocide Convention, the plausible rights in question in these proceedings are of such a nature that prejudice to them is capable of causing irreparable harm. The Court recalls that on May 7, 2024, Israel began a military offensive in Rafah following weeks of intensified bombardment, and that as a result, approximately 800,000 Palestinians were displaced from Rafah as at May 18, 2024. The Court notes that senior United Nations officials have consistently underscored the immense risks associated with the military offensive in Rafah. For instance, on May 3, 2024, the spokesperson of the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs warned that an assault on Rafah would put, I quote, hundreds of thousands of people at imminent risk of death, end of quote, and would severely impact the humanitarian operation in the entire Gaza Strip, which is run primarily out of Rafah. On May 6, 2024, The United Nations Children's Fund indicated that about half of the approximately 1.2 million Palestinians sheltering in Rafah were children, and warned that military operations therein would result in, I quote, the few remaining basic services and infrastructure they need to survive being totally destroyed, end of quote. The United Nations sources indicate that the aforementioned risks have started to materialize and will intensify even further if the operation continues. For instance, on May 8, 2024, the Director General of the World Health Organization stated the Al-Najjar Hospital, one of the last remaining medical facilities in the Rafah Governorate, was no longer functional due to the ongoing hostilities in its vicinity. On May 17, 2024, the World Food Programme warned that it had been able to access its warehouses in Rafah it hadn't been able to access its warehouses in Rafah for over a week, and observed that, I quote, the incursion into Rafah is a significant setback to recent modest progress on access, end of quote. On the basis of information before it, the court is not convinced that the evacuation efforts and related measures that Israel affirms to have undertaken to enhance the security of civilians in the Gaza Strip, and in particular those recently displaced from the Rafah Governorate, are sufficient to alleviate the immense risk to which the Palestinian population is exposed as a result of the military offensive in Rafah. The court observed, for instance, that according to a statement by the Commissioner General of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine refugees in the Near East, Mr. Philippe Lazzarini, on May 18, 2024, I quote, "The areas that peoples are fleeing to now do not have safe water supplies or sanitation facilities. Al-Mawasi, as one example, is a sandy 14-square-kilometer agricultural land where people are left out in the open with little to no buildings or roads. It lacks the minimal conditions to provide emergency humanitarian assistance in a safe and dignified manner," end of quote. The court observed that Israel has not provided sufficient information concerning the safety of the population during the evacuation process, or the availability in Al-Mawasi area of the necessary amount of water, sanitation, food, medicine, and shelter for the 800,000 Palestinians that have evacuated thus far. Consequently, the court is of the view that Israel has not sufficiently addressed and dispelled the concerns raised by its military offensive in Rafah. In light of the considerations set out in the preceding sections of the order, and taking account of the provisional measures indicated in its orders of January 26, 2024, and March 28, 2024, the court finds that the current situation arising from Israel's military offensive in Rafah entails a further risk of irreparable prejudice to the plausible rights claimed by South Africa, and that there is urgency in the sense that there exists a real and imminent risk that such prejudice will be caused before the court gives its final decision. The court concludes, on the basis of the aforementioned considerations, that the circumstances of the case require to modify its decision set out in its order of March 28, 2024. The court recalls that in accordance with Article 75, paragraph 2 of its rules, when a request for the indication of provisional measures has been made, it has the power under its statute to indicate measures that are not in whole or in part other than those requested. In the present case, having considered the terms of the provisional measures requested by South Africa and the circumstances of the case, the Court found that the measures to be indicated need not be identical to those requested. The Court considered that, in conformity with its obligations under the Genocide Convention, Israel must immediately halt its military offensive and any other action in the Rafah governorate which may inflict on the Palestinian group in Gaza conditions of life that could bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. The Court recalls that in its order of January 26, 2024, it ordered Israel inter alia to, I quote, take effective measures to prevent the destruction and ensure the preservation of evidence related to allegations of acts within the scope of Article 2 and Article 3 of the Genocide Convention, end of quote. In the present circumstances, the Court is also of the view that, in order to preserve evidence related to allegations of acts falling within the scope of Article 2 and Article 3 of the Genocide Convention, Israel must take effective measures to ensure the unimpeded access to the Gaza Strip of any commission of inquiry, fact-finding mission, or other investigative body mandated by competent organs of the United Nations to investigate allegations of genocide. The Court also considers that the catastrophic situation in Gaza confirmed the need for the immediate and effective implementation of the measures indicated in its orders of January 26, 2024 and March 28, 2024, which are applicable throughout the Gaza Strip, including in Rafah. In these circumstances, the Court finds it necessary to reaffirm the measures indicated in those orders. In so doing, the Court wishes to emphasize that the measure indicated in paragraph 51(2)(a) of its order of March 28, 2024, requiring, I quote, the unhindered provision at scale by all concerned of urgently needed basic services and humanitarian assistance, end of quote, necessitates that the respondent maintain open land crossing points, and in particular the Rafah crossing. In view of the specific provisional measures it has decided to indicate, the Court considered that Israel must submit a report to the Court on all measures taken to give effect to this order within 1 month from the date of this order. The report so provided will then be communicated to South Africa, which shall be given the opportunity to submit to the Court its comments thereon. The Court recalls that its orders on provisional measures under Article 41 of the statute have binding effect and thus create international legal obligations for any party to whom the provisional measures are addressed. The Court underlined that the present order is without prejudice to any findings concerning the respondent's compliance with the orders of January 26, 2024 and March 28, 2024. In its orders of January 26, 2024 and March 28, 2024, the Court expressed its grave concern over the fate of the hostages abducted during the attacks in Israel on October 7, 2023, and held since then by Hamas and other armed groups, and called for their immediate and unconditional release. The Court finds it deeply troubling that many of these hostages remain in captivity and reiterates its call for their immediate and unconditional release. I shall now read out the operative part of the order. For these reasons, the Court, by 13 votes to 2, reaffirms the provisional measures indicated in its orders of 26 January 2024 and March 28, 2024, which should be immediately and effectively implemented. In favor, President Salam, Judges Abraham, Yusuf, Shway, Bandari, Iwasawa, Nolte, Charlesworth, Brandt, Gomez-Robledo, Cleveland, Oresco, Tladi. Against, Vice President Sebutinde, Judge ad hoc Barak. 2. Indicates the following provisional measures. The State of Israel shall, in conformity with its obligations under the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, and in view of the worsening conditions of life faced by civilians in the Rafah Governorate, A, by 13 votes to 2, immediately halt its military offensive and any other action in the Rafah Governorate which may inflict on the Palestinian group in Gaza conditions of life that would bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. In favor, President Salam, Judges Abraham, Yusuf, Shway, Bandari, Iwasawa, Nolte, Charlesworth, Brandt, Gomez-Robledo, Cleveland, Oresco, Tladi. Against, Vice President Sebutinde, Judge ad hoc Barak. By 13 votes to 2, maintain open the Rafah crossing for unhindered provision at scale of urgently needed basic services and humanitarian assistance. In favor, President Salam, Judges Abraham, Yusuf, Shway, Bandari, Iwasawa, Nolte, Charlesworth, Brandt, Gomez-Robledo, Cleveland, Oresco, Tladi. Against, Vice President Sebutinde, Judge ad hoc Barak. C, by 13 votes to 2, take effective measures to ensure the unimpeded access to the Gaza Strip of any commission of inquiry, fact-finding mission, or other investigative body mandated by competent organs of the United Nations to investigate allegations of genocide. In favor, President Salam, Judges Abraham, Yusuf, Shway, Bandari, Iwasawa, Nolte, Charlesworth, Brandt, Gomez-Robledo, Cleveland, Oresco, Tladi. Against, Vice President Sebutinde, Judge ad hoc Barak. 3. By 13 votes to 2, decides that the State of Israel shall submit a report to the Court on all measures taken to give effect to this order within 1 month as from the date of this order. In favor, President Salam, Judges Abraham, Yusuf, Shway, Bandari, Iwasawa, Nolte, Charlesworth, Brandt, Gomez-Robledo, Cleveland, Oresco, Tladi. Against, Vice President Sebutinde, Judge ad hoc Barak. I shall now call on the Registrar to read the operative part of the order in French.
Par ces motifs, la Cour, 1, par 13 voix contre 2, réaffirme les mesures conservatoires indiquées dans ses ordonnances des 26 janvier et 28 mars 2024 qui doivent être immédiatement et effectivement mises en œuvre. Pour M. Salam Président, M. Abraham Youssouf, Mme Shway, M. Bandari Iwasawa Nolte, Mme Charlesworth, M. Brand Gomez-Robledo, Mme Cleveland, M. Orescu Tladi, juge. Contre, Mme Sebutinde, vice-présidente, M. Barak, juge ad hoc. 2. Indique les mesures conservatoires suivantes. L'État d'Israël doit, conformément aux obligations lui incombant au titre de la Convention pour la prévention et la répression du crime de génocide, et au vu de la dégradation des conditions d'existence auxquelles sont soumis les civils dans le gouvernorat de Rafah, a, par 13 voix contre 2, arrêté immédiatement son offensive militaire et toute autre action menée dans le gouvernorat de Rafah qui serait susceptible de soumettre le groupe des Palestiniens de Gaza à des conditions d'existence capables d'entraîner sa destruction physique totale ou partielle. Pour M. Salam Président, M. Abraham Youssouf, Mme Choué, M. Bandari Iwasawa Nolt, Mme Charlesworth, M. Brand Gomez Robledo, Mme Cleveland, M. Orescu Tladi, juge, contre Mme Sebutinde, vice-présidente, M. Barak, juge ad hoc. B. Par 13 voix contre 2. Maintenir ouvert le point de passage de Rafah pour que puisse être assurée, sans restriction et à grande échelle, la fourniture des services de base et de l'aide humanitaire requis de toute urgence. Pour M. Salam Président, M. Abraham Youssouf, Mme Choué, M. Bandari Iwasawa Nolt, Mme Charlesworth, M. Brand Gomez Robledo, Mme Cleveland, M. Orescu Tladi, juge, contre Mme Sebutinde, vice-présidente, M. Barak, juge ad hoc. C. Par 13 voix contre 2. Prendre des mesures permettant effectivement de garantir l'accès sans entrave à la bande de Gaza à toute commission d'enquête, toute mission d'établissement des faits ou tout autre organisme chargé par les organes compétents de l'Organisation des Nations Unies d'enquêter sur des allégations de génocide. Pour M. Salam Président, M. Abraham Youssouf, Mme Choué, M. Bandari Iwasawa Nolt, Mme Charlesworth, M. Brand Gomez Robledo, Mme Cleveland, M. Orescu Tladi, juge, contre Mme Sebutinde, vice-présidente, M. Barak, juge ad hoc. 3. Par 13 voix contre 2, décide que l'État d'Israël devra, dans un délai d'1 mois à compter de la date de la présente ordonnance, soumettre à la Cour un rapport sur l'ensemble des mesures qu'il aura prises pour donner effet à cette ordonnance. Pour M. Salam Président, M. Abraham Youssouf, Mme Choué, M. Bandari Iwasawa Nolt, Mme Charlesworth, M. Brand Gomez Robledo, Mme Cleveland, M. Orescu Tladi, juge, contre Mme Sebutinde, vice-présidente, M. Barak, juge ad hoc.
Vice President Sebutinde appends a dissenting opinion to the order of the court. Judges Nolte, Orescu, and Tladi append declaration to the order of the court. Judge ad hoc Barak appends a dissenting opinion to the order of the court. The text of the order is available from today in typescript. It will be available shortly on the court's website. The printed text will be available in due course. As the court has no further business before it today, I declare the sitting closed.